I'm Brian Gregg, and I'm here with Simon Dyakowski, President and CEO of GSP.V Corp. GSP trades on the TSXV under ticker symbol GSPR. Hi, Simon.
Hey Brian, how you doing? Thanks for having me onto your show today.
I'm doing pretty good, and thanks very much for joining. So I'll just jump into a few quick questions and looking forward to having a conversation with you. So yeah, please feel free to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your background and your management team.
Well, sounds great, and it's good to be chatting with you and your audience today. I love the franchise that you guys are building on Twitter, and it's a great brand, and I really enjoy the content that's coming out and exposure to all sorts of different companies. So I'm really honored to be on your show today. Just introduce myself. I am the CEO of GSP Resource Corp. We're basically a micro cap listed copper exploration company focused on projects in southwestern BC. We have a market cap of about $4 million right now, so very much on the small end of the scale. But we think we have good upside on the two projects that we're working on, and we've actually done quite a bit of work on them in the last 3 years. So my background is I've been involved in the venture markets for about 15 years. My career has taken me from being a research analyst to being a stockbroker to working on the lending side of the corporate finance business, and the last 5 years or so I've been focused on venture companies and raising money to pursue various projects, primarily in the mining space. And GSP is really one that I built myself here with some partners in Vancouver, and we took it public about 3 years ago. We have two projects, one just outside of Princeton, British Columbia, that's called Alwin Mountain. And then more recently, we've acquired an option to acquire 100% of a past producing high grade copper mine. And that's in the Highland Valley of British Columbia. And that's a series of mines controlled by Teck Resources now. And it's one of British Columbia's largest industrial operations, and they process something like 160,000 tons a day of ore there. So it's a huge operation, and we happen to have our hands on a project that is adjacent to it and was in operation or was in production in the early 70s for a couple of years, and then again in the early 80s. And so we saw an opportunity to get involved in a copper project that's not purely grassroots. It's something that we know there's copper there. It's been in production. It's only been partially mined out, and we thought that with the resurgence in copper pricing over the last few months and years, really, that it would be worth having another look. So we've been raising funds to go and drill it and reimagine the resource model there, and we've been having pretty good success on that front. And we've just wrapped up a program there in November, right in time to miss the storms, fortunately. And we're waiting for those results to come out, and we're planning our next step. So that's kind of GSP's project portfolio in a nutshell. It's a well-structured company. We only have about 20 million shares out. Not most, but about 35% of them are held by insiders. And we have a good group that have been in from the beginning, and we think we're just getting going on this one.
Absolutely. No, I've been following it closely. And just for the record, I've been a shareholder as well. I'm a small shareholder, but hope to grow that position. I'm really bullish on copper generally, but also your management team and the position of that property there near the Highland Valley mine. I think it's very interesting. I'm really interested in stories where it's kind of brownfield sites where you're bringing a mine kind of had some proven production capability back to life, just as the landscape has changed for economic viability of projects. That's kind of a strategy I've been focusing on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that might be kind of a core part of the story there for Alwin Mine.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there are obviously a whole number of strategies across the spectrum of exploration through to mining companies. We really like British Columbia. It's a proven mining jurisdiction. It's known, it's mineral rich. And yeah, as you touched on the brownfields aspect of the project, I really liked. There are a lot of very talented exploration teams that have, an expertise in taking large scale grassroots projects and generating targets and making discoveries. But, with the team that we put together, we're more focused on raising money and proving out something that's we already know is there. And we've got a number of geologists involved that do think that the small high grade mine that we have at Alwin might be part of a larger system. So we have some exploration upside.
Mhm.
And the key for us is that the method of mining that was contemplated in the 1960s and 70s was really in the context of lower copper pricing, where they were focused strictly on the high grade structures of the mine, and they hadn't considered modeling it as a lower grade or a bulk tonnage open pit, which is the predominant method of copper production now. So, that's where we saw the opportunity, was to imagine the Alwyn as an open pit. And, we're early in our journey to proving that out, but thus far it's been successful, and we're happy with the results that we've gotten to date.
No doubt. And I'm not sure to the extent to which you can comment on this, but where my mind goes naturally as an investor is I really love your neighbor there. And I'm just wondering if, if that might be part of the strategy. Is there a possibility anyway for buyout? Is the goal to put it into production? Is it a combination of the two? What are your sort of general comments on that, if any?
Well, I mean, we can't deny the fact that there is a massive mine next door to us with 5 historic open pits, and I think they're producing out of 3 of them right now. And the Valley pit is the largest, and it's about 2 kilometers from our project border. But to me, that's good because it's an area it's disturbed already. It's a known mining district within the province. So, in terms of permitting, perhaps another mine there might be less roadblocks than, for example, somewhere that's more remote, or in more of a pristine environment. So I like it from that perspective. It's got exceptionally good infrastructure, obviously, with the mines and the mining community around it, and road, rail, power, water, and all that's all there. In terms of our strategy to monetize and develop the project, like I said, we're still quite early in our efforts to prove out the deposit. We're solely focused right now on the exploration model, which is to execute our game plan to build a bigger model for Alwyn with more tonnage. And as far as who ultimately develops that, that's a little bit in the future, and I don't think that's something that we want to get too worried about right now. We've got our work cut out for us to drill and build models.
Yeah, and sort of brief on the drill program. There was a summer drill program, I think 5 holes, and then three again in the fall. And roughly, what do you see as kind of next steps for rolling out any data that might come from that? And what are your general comments?
Yeah, so we were able to drill about 2,200 meters this year, 8 holes. Now, for us to drill 8 holes and 2,200 meters, it's got to be in the context of what we're doing. We're not a grassroots play where we can drill it in a grid. That's because we actually have to dodge and weave through about 2,700 meters of mine working. So a lot of the challenge that we have at Alwyn is related to threading the needle from the surface to the ore body, doing so in a manner that we can without hitting voids and having to reduce our core diameter. It takes a lot of planning to get these drill holes spotted. So we were able to do 8. We were actually able to get all the samples out to the labs before, well, half of them before the highway collapsed at the Coquihalla, and
Right.
then the other half we were able to do a deal with the lab in Kamloops. So because the order was, I think it was just a few samples shy of 200, they agreed to take our order. So we shouldn't be too delayed getting those results back. So I would expect in the first quarter we'll have an update. And in the meantime, we're going to be tightening up the model, adding in all of the information that we found in the drill logs into the model, planning our next steps. And those next steps could include targeting some additional targets outside of the Alwyn zone. So a little bit early, but we do see some prospectivity north of the Alwyn mine for finding some unknown as of yet mineralization there. Although it did have a reasonably sized high grade deposit outlined in a 1980 feasibility study, we do think that it's been untested in other parts of the project. And given the cost of drilling, we'd like to be very careful about selecting those future targets. But we do anticipate having a follow-up drill program in the spring and chase up on some of those targets as well.
Oh, it's very interesting. Lots of opportunity there. And personally, I'm always looking for the micro cap opportunities based on the thesis there and the story you've told. There's a lot of room for potential growth. So excited to be part of that. A question I always want to ask any CEO, though, is what is it that you think in your mind sets GSP apart from any of the other resource companies, and there's so many of them on the TSXV? If you could sort of pick, one or two things, what is it that you think is unique about your opportunity?
One obvious thing for us has been our focus on maintaining a tight capital structure. So we've been public now for over 3 years and we still only have 20 million shares outstanding. So for us, one thing that we really try to control is the structure, just so that we have the best shot at, when we do have that tailwind from the copper market or the gold market or whatever, that we have the highest leverage for our shareholders as possible for them to make some money on the way up. One way of doing that is obviously to keep the share count low, and that's
Mhm.
been one thing that we've been able to do. I would say that's one kind of key differentiator between us and other companies. It's not to say that there aren't other well structured companies out there, but that's one thing that we like to do. And then project is probably, actually I should have reversed those. Project would be one, and structure number two, but the project is excellent. I mean, getting your hands on a past producer like that it's rare. We were able to do it through some relationships that we have in the industry. It might not be the biggest mine on the global scale, but it is a mine and there is a deposit there, and it hasn't had a serious look really in 40 years. So we're
Mm.
fortunate to be the first group in there in a nascent, I think, copper bull market here. I mean, we've had some ups and downs the last couple of years, but generally, if you compare the demand growth that's projected over the next few years with what we saw in the early 2000s, when copper went from, I think it was 67 cents a pound back at its lowest, up to $4 during that run. So now we're back to where we were 10 years ago, and there's much more demand and less supply on top of that. So I think it's still early in the bull run. We're having a bit of a shakeout right now, but I expect that sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll have a real rockin' market, and we'll be right there working on a great copper project and adding tonnage.
Fantastic. I'm aligned with your thinking on copper. So many signs for that, I think. Great opportunity to enter. Yeah, I like your answer. I think it's a unique one, having talked to a few people. It's really important, obviously, to have good neighbors, a good land package, and a great project. But it isn't as common as many would like to think in the junior mining space to have a tight share structure. As you said, there are other examples of companies that have a good structure, but it's not as common as one would like to think. And so that for me is really a positive thing to hear. So, on that note, just want to know if there's kind of any concluding remarks or final thoughts that you'd like to leave with prospective shareholders.
I maybe I'll just add that if anybody is interested in learning more about the project, they can reach out to me directly. I mean, one thing that I love to do is talk to shareholders, and the venture markets are they're an interesting place, and I enjoy meeting new people. And if anybody's interested in getting involved or learning more, I'm all ears. So shoot me an email, simon@gspresource.com, or text or a phone call. My phone number is 604-619-7469. That's really all I had. And thanks a lot for having me on. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas over the next couple weeks here.
Thanks very much, Simon. And I would also just like to say we would love to have the opportunity to speak to you again in the future. If there's an update that you'd like to provide, we'd be more than happy to stay in touch. So thanks once again.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.